Welcome to Voice Memos. Guys, this is the first ever official dialogue session, episode. I don't know. I'm bringing on more guests and I'm calling them dialogues, which, makes sense. But I can't decide should I put it in the title? Should I just say we're having a dialogue session? I'm not sure. In any case, I'm joined today by Kristen LaValley, who is an incredible author, a dear friend, and I love the work that she's doing. And what an incredible way to kick off this series. Truly, it's so much fun. We talk about lip color and how I'm declaring this year to be the year of bold lip color. And we talk about that and bond over it. We talk about Wicked. So, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about Wicked for good. Just skip right on past that if you don't want the spoilers. We're going to talk a lot about neurodivergence. We're going to talk about growing up saved, which is the title of her new book that you should absolutely pre-order today. I'm about halfway through reading it, and you guys, I have my full endorsement is behind this book. I am so excited for this book to get into your hands and to share this conversation with you about her book, Growing Up Saved. You're going to love it. We're going to dive into more. I'm going to let her kind of introduce it in full. But along with that, we're going to talk about neurodivergence and how that impacts our experience at church. We're going to talk about faith and how our faith is formed in the early years of our sort of spiritual maturity and what that looks like, and how to kind of wrestle with really clarifying and understanding deeper the person of Jesus and what we believe and what's true and what's not true, and seeking out some discernment here in whatever stage of that journey that you're on. It's such a fun conversation, and I hope it really, really blesses you. We also have a little bit of a conversation around how she's marketing and launching this book, which I think is such a fun she's taking such a fun approach on it. Her and I actually got to do a strategy session together, and I got to kind of help her sort of brainstorm a few ways to be able to market this book and make it more fun, because you and I, we all know how exhausting launching can be. And I think follow along with Kristen's launch, because she is really taking this advice that I often give my clients of make the launch an extension of the work. Make the launch a work of art, an art installation, if you will, and have fun with it and be creative with it. And the way that Kristen is launching her book, Growing Up Saved, very much in line with that principle that I teach. And I think it would be very educational and just fun for you to follow along on that journey. So without further ado, let's dive right on into incredible conversation. I hope you love it. Okay, so actually, I lied a little bit there. Before we dive on in, I want to tell you about the upcoming company retreat. Company retreat is a deep work and a deep rest sojourn on the Oregon coast. It's happening this March, the end of March, the 23rd through the 28th. And it's for Christian authors, writers, leaders, business owners. And it's a place for you to do exactly what I said, to experience some deep rest, experience some deep work. We're going to do a lot of annual planning and strategic planning. We're going to look back on the past year. We're going to play and rest hard. It's going to be a space where you can grow your relationship with Christ, where you can be renewed and be really equipped to steward the work that God has put in front of you in this next season of your life, and whatever that ways that looks. I have a whole bunch more information for you all about Company Retreat on my website. I'm going to put the link for you in the show notes, but early bird sales are closing on January 1. So if you want to save quite a bit of money and get your application in before January 1st, because I would love to hang out with you in person on the Oregon coast. It's going to be so incredible. My heart for this retreat is to be able to really spoil you and to help the leaders be cared for. Because when was the last time you let yourself be cared for and let yourself be spoiled and let yourself really rest really deeply? And that's what Company Retreat's all about. Okay, now let's get into the show. Hey. Oh, how?
You look cute. I like your lipstick.
Hey, thanks. It's the kind that's I've gotten ads for them relentlessly.
Oh, what is it?
It worked. It's like a lip oil, but when the oil fades away, the stain stays on.
That's cool.
Which I really love, because I love the idea of lip stains. I really like the
this is the one that I got sucked into, the lip stain.
oh
the
yeah,
Wonder
that's the one
Skin.
you peel, right?
No, it just wipes off.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you feel though, if it doesn't get on exactly right, it's like that forever?
No.
That's good.
No, I use it if it like sometimes it'll get a little heavy in the middle, and I'll just take a makeup wipe and get it off.
Smart. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really smart, because I always get worried. I have ones by It's like a drugstore brand. I wanna say it's like CoverGirl. It's like they're
Mhm.
like and I really like them, but I feel like if I don't put it on perfectly, it looks like that forever.
Oh, no, I
Like,
don't
I
like that.
could probably wipe it all off with makeup remover, but it always takes longer than like, it's, like, too strong of a
Yeah.
stain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not good. No, I don't like that. I like this one. Have you been seeing the Black Honey girls?
Yes. Do you like it?
I love it. This is the lip and cheek oil. So I got this one because they're all really expensive. This was $27. So I got this because I was like, well, if I like it, maybe I'll upgrade and I'll get like because the lipstick is a little bit thicker. I
Yeah.
really like it.
That's
Like I
that's
kind of
like
want
one
the whole Black Honey set.
that's awesome. That's one of my favorite, like, little luxuries to, like, get is, like, the fancy lip. I don't even
Yeah.
use them all the time, but I still
No,
just
me
want to
either.
have them everywhere.
Me either. I don't like the texture of lipstick and stuff. So doing
Yeah.
stuff like this is like new for me to try to like
Yeah, to
find
play
something
with.
because my lips are, like, so pale, like, this is just with, like, a little bit of lip gloss on, but I
Mhm.
feel like my lips are the same color as my face.
Yep,
I'm
I
like, I
feel the
need to,
same.
like, get past this and just start wearing stuff on my lips, but I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
declared last year the year of being bold with lip color. I
Oh,
fizzled out
oh,
pretty early on, but this year I'm re-upping, trying
good.
again.
Good for you. I always say that I don't like wearing a lot of makeup because people notice when I wear makeup and they comment on it, and I
Yeah.
don't like wearing bright colors, specifically red. I call it perceive me color. Like if you're wearing red, you want people or you're okay at least with people
Yes, yeah,
paying
with
attention to you. And I'm
mhm,
like, I got to work myself up to that. Like I
up
want to
to
get to the
that.
point where I feel good and confident wearing a red
Mhm.
lip, but I'm not there yet. I'm like, don't
I
look at
feel that way too. That's why I did that last year because I love the look of a red lip. I think it looks
Yeah.
beautiful, but then I
Oh,
always feel like I'm wearing clown shoes.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, "I just gotta do it." So I got 2 shades of red that are, like, softer than what I was wanting to go up to, like,
Mm.
build myself to it. I
Yeah.
also learned that there are different, like, undertones to the red. So, like, if you get a
Oh,
red with bluer undertones, because I get weird like, I'm drinking coffee all the time, and no amount of me
yeah.
staining my teeth is gonna make them not a little bit yellow.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I wear red lipstick, it makes my teeth look more yellow, but I learned that if you look for
Oh,
ones with,
interesting.
like, a bluer undertone, it helps to prevent that.
Wow, there's a science to it. I had no idea.
I
Wow.
mean, it makes sense because like, color theory is a thing, but I didn't think about it either until I started, like, researching it, but
Well, whatever color you've got on is working for you.
I actually think it has cherry in the name.
And the bangs? Are you loving the bangs?
I like
I love them.
thank you. The way I waffle back and forth between love,
Yeah.
hate, and
Well,
when I
that's
wake up
bangs.
in the morning and they're like this,
Yeah.
then I'm like,
Yeah.
"What did I do this for?"
Bangs is such a commitment. You have to be willing to do your hair every
It
day,
really
multiple
is.
times a day.
Yes. Yep. I have, like, a little, like, boar bristle kind of comb, and I just carry it on my person now because
Yeah.
then it, like, because I don't like it when they get all, like, clumpy, and, like, there's no way that's not gonna happen in the Pacific Northwest where it's raining all the time.
Oh, true.
I didn't think that through, but whatever. I'm still happy with it all the way
They
all
look great.
around.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I have because I feel like oftentimes interviews get boring with the introductions. I
Okay.
created some rapid fire questions that it's
Okay.
okay if they don't go rapid. Answer them how you will. But my very first one before we like kind of get into talking about your book is what did you think of Wicked for Good? Because you went and saw it, right?
Sh Okay. I have mixed feelings on it.
Okay. Tell
I
me
love
everything.
I love it. I loved the movie. However, I feel like we could have had one really long movie. Like, I feel like the best parts of the movie and the story they rushed through because they're
Yeah.
trying to, like, you know, I don't know what they were trying to do, but I feel like if they had put the 2 together, they could have told a more cohesive story, but there was so much that, like, I had to explain to Zach because I've never seen the musical, but I've read the book, so I kind of, like, know what was going
Yeah,
on. He's like,
yeah.
"Wait a second." I don't know if do we need a spoiler alert? He's like,
Yeah.
"Wait a second.
Yeah, if you've seen it, if you
Where
haven't seen it, just skip ahead a minute.
where did Pharaoh come from? How did he know she was under the floorboards?" And I'm like, well, in the book, in the musical, and I'm like trying to explain it. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
they didn't
yeah.
really like explain that for people
Mm,
who maybe don't have the lore
mhm.
behind it. I think if I had to pick, I would pick the first movie to watch over and over again.
Yeah.
But I really loved it. I had a good time with it. But we also had the girls with us, and they both
Mhm.
have autism, as we know. So it was kind of
Yeah.
like I couldn't, like, really focus on the movie so much because 'cause they're asking questions like, "Where's
Right.
Elphaba? Why is Glinda crying? Is that Fiero's belly button? Does Fiero have a belly button?"
Yeah.
But I loved it. I did.
All good questions. I loved it too, but I agree with what you're saying. Oldest, she's 9, said
Mhm.
the same thing. She was like, "Why didn't we just have one big
I know,
movie?
it would've
Because
been
all the
yeah,
best parts are in the beginning." And I was
yeah.
like, "That's a good question
I would
right
have
there."
loved to see more of the friendship building between
Mm.
the crew. I feel like that's such an important part of the story, and I found someone who calculated all the screen time for the characters, and Bach and Nessa got, like, 7 minutes each in the whole 2nd movie, and, like, these are really
Yeah,
central characters to the story. I would have loved to see more
more.
background on that.
Mhm.
Like, if you're gonna have 2 whole movies, don't we have time to, like, explore the story a little more?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree. Well, and I thought too that the second one, I was expecting it to be a longer runtime because I wasn't the first one
Yeah.
almost 3 hours?
Yeah, it was,
And
yeah.
the second one was, like, barely 2, I think, or right around 2.
Yeah, see,
And
we coulda
I was expecting it
had
to be
more
another, like,
movie.
epic, but
Yeah,
I did
but,
love it all.
that's capitalism for you, gotta draw it out.
Well, and I wonder if they're gonna release, like, a director's cut
Oh, that
with
would be
everything. Part of
fun.
me wonders if they, like, withheld some of that on purpose.
Well, I'm wondering too if maybe the success of the movie was so unexpected that maybe now another studio will pick it up like they're doing with the Harry Potter books, turning it
Oh,
into
maybe,
a
yeah.
series. Like, I wonder if someone will do that, but maybe for the books instead of the musical,
Yeah.
because the books are very adult, very, very
Yeah, I was gonna read them with
and
Iris, and
dark.
then as I was reading reviews, I was like,
No, 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 no.
"Just kidding, we're
No,
not
no,
doing
no.
this."
No, I have that book, like, tucked away in my house because my kids they all love Wicked, but I'm like, "This
Yeah.
is not a kid's book. In
And
no
I read an
way."
excerpt from it, and I was like, "I don't even know if this is a Dusty book."
No. There were some things that I was like, "I've never read anything like that in a book before, ever." I'm like, "I gotta skip through. I'm not grown up enough for this." Is anyone? I don't know.
That's funny. Okay, so I do something called a squirrel bowl, and I have mine right here. It's just like where I throw, like when I like forget to eat, or if I'm in a rush, I like throw everything I can randomly grab into a bowl. If you were to make a squirrel bowl, what would you put in your squirrel bowl?
Oh, that's a good
Like quick
question.
rag snacks.
Okay, I really like I don't know if this is well, yeah, it's quick grab if you already have that made, but I really like
Yeah.
peanut butter protein balls.
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
I don't know, they're, like, really easy, but I forgot to eat all the time. I forgot to eat today, and my husband just dropped off a little protein ball from our local health food store. It's just, like, not in my like, I don't know, ADHD girls, I think
Yep.
we just forget to eat.
That's exactly
And
what
then
it
people
is.
are like, "Oh, did you forget to eat?" And I'm like, "No, like, it's not a good thing."
The amount of people that are like, "Oh, I wish I had that," and I was like,
No, you
"You
don't.
don't though,
No,
sweetie."
because then you crash and you're like, "Why am I so tired and cranky? Oh, I didn't eat." But yeah, I would do peanut butter balls and something chocolatey. I really like M&M minis. That would be my, like
What a good choice.
not a healthy choice, but I like it.
I mean, that you need something fun.
I love that squirrel bowl. What's in your squirrel bowl?
Right now, I call them flat pretzels
Oh,
because
I
they're
like
flat
those. Yeah.
pretzels. Yeah. And then pistachios and a little orange. But I really like it when I can add, like, some sort of a sweet thing like you're saying. Like, I
Oh,
really like doing, like, candied or, like, the praline pecans.
ooh,
Or
fancy.
some sort of, like, a candy nut, because then I'm getting,
Yeah.
like, the fun thing and something that's, like, has a little bit of nutrition in it.
Yeah, get some protein in there,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's the thing I've learned with, like, me having a hard time eating is I just all of the stuff that, like, I feel like a lot of nutritionists are like, "Don't if you're trying to lose weight, don't eat tons of this," things are the things that I need because like, I need it to have high fat, high protein, high
Yeah.
calories with, like, a little bit of
Yep,
effort.
yep, the same rules do not apply to
Don't
everyone.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, next one. If you could instantly master one, like, wildly impractical skill, like glass blowing or something, what would it be?
Okay, interesting that you should ask that because I'm really trying to retrain or rechannel my creativity to more visual creativity because I'm very
Oh.
creative writing, but I'm not creative visually. So I've been
Mhm.
trying to learn junk journaling, like mixed media
Fun.
collages. If I could just like instantly have because you can have all the material, but if you don't have the vision and the
Mhm.
experience of like what textures go good and where like what colors and how to lay things
Yeah.
out, then it's just kinda like, you look like a 3rd graders although there are probably some 3rd graders that are better at this than I am, but if I could instantly master that, I would be so happy because
Yeah.
I have poetry that I want to put to mixed media, but I
I
don't know how
love
to
that.
translate it to mixed media yet, so I'm
Mm.
learning, but if I could overnight
Just,
flip a
like, pick it
switch
up quick.
give it to
What a
me.
fun thing to do. I love that. It's cool to see how collages like that are coming back in a really cool
Yeah,
way.
isn't that funny? I love
Yeah.
it. It's
I think
great.
it's really fun, yeah. That's actually, I think, an activity we'll do when I do company retreat in March, is do like
Good.
a little collage thing, because I think it'd be a fun little
So
icebreaker.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is like a form of entertainment that's making you happy right now? Book, show, somebody's TikTok account, whatever it is.
Well, it's Stranger Things season in this house. So
Yes! That's exciting.
Stranger Things all day, and then discuss because they're releasing it in volumes. So me and my husband and our oldest, who's almost 15, are like, we don't let the younger kids
Right.
watch it.
Yeah.
This is the almost 15-year-old. We watched the first volume, and now it's just discussing our theories. And like every day, we're like, hang on, what if it's this and what if it's that? So it is like fully consumed in our house by
That's
Stranger
awesome.
Things. Yeah,
I'm excited for when my kids are old enough to be brought into those things. They're, like,
it's
starting to get
fun.
there, but I'm really
It's so
looking forward to
fun.
it.
I love
Yeah,
it.
that's really cool. Okay, next one. You're doing great, PS.
Thanks.
So good at the rapid fire. Okay, what's, like, a random or maybe unexpected sort of, like, rhythm or routine that you have in your day that, like, really supports you or makes you happy or
Hmm.
just makes your days function more smoothly?
Well, that's a good question.
Doesn't even have to be, like, a big thing. I think sometimes we think of rhythm or routine and think
Yeah.
it has to be elaborate, but it doesn't.
Well, one thing I've been doing the past like 6 months, I've been really struggling with a chronic illness and getting my day started in certain points of the month, not all
Mhm.
month long, but they're like
Yeah.
the chronic illness is with my cycle. So there are certain parts of my cycle was really hard to get out of bed. But I find if I have this routine of getting up and reading a book that is like a comfort book for me. So I like to read a lot of
Yeah.
the same books over and over again before
Mm.
if I'm in like a, I just need my creature comforts, then I'm not reading a
Mhm.
new book because I don't know what to expect. So I'll go back to the same books. So I actually, when we were in Scotland together, I got the
Mhm.
whole Harry Potter UK version of the Harry Potter
That's
set and brought it
awesome.
home with me, so I've been reading the UK versions of Harry Potter in the
Wow.
morning, and I've read these books, like, hundreds of
Yeah.
times, but it's nice to have something in the morning that feels comforting, I know what to expect. It's just
Mhm.
like a it's good little rhythm that helps me to start my day, especially on days where my body is like, "You just wanna stay in bed all day."
Right. Yeah, that's smart. Do you do it, like, in bed? I want more logistics. Like, do you get out of bed to
I
read
get
it,
out
or
of
do you
bed.
just snuggle in
Yeah.
bed, or what?
Yeah, I have a little chair in my living room that
Okay.
no one is allowed to sit in except for me, and I have my little
Love that.
blanket. I do this with writing too. I have, like, a writing routine that helps me to get into the flow of writing, and there are rhythms that I do to, like, get into that, and this it's kind of the same thing. Like, I know I'm gonna go downstairs, I'm gonna grab my book, I'm gonna sit in the
Mm.
chair, I'm gonna have my little blanket, my husband's gonna bring me my coffee like he does every morning, and the girls are gonna play, and the kids are gonna be getting ready for school. So it's the
Yeah.
same thing every day, and knowing what to expect and knowing what I'm gonna do when I'm down there and
Mhm.
what the energy is gonna be. I mean, with 5 kids, you can't
Right.
predict it, but,
But you
for
like, controlling what you can control, which
yeah,
is, like, what it sounds like this
yeah,
that's happening, makes
yeah,
it better. That's really cool.
yeah,
Okay,
thanks.
if your work, like, the work that you do was a coffee order, what would it be?
Ooh. Well, the first thing that came to mind was a flat white. I
Ooh,
think
tell me why.
because it's kind of like when I think of people who order flat whites, I think they're more like cerebral
Yeah.
people interested in discussing life and
Mhm.
feelings and, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a flat white person. I'm like a flavored latte person, but I would think I'm gonna order flat whites and we're gonna talk about faith and
Mhm.
neurodivergence and the intersection of all of those things.
Yeah, yeah. When you order a drink like that, it's like a drink you're meant to, like, settle in and drink. It's not like a
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not drinking a flat white on the go.
No, and you're not drinking a flat white if you've never drank coffee before. Like if you're a
Right.
flat white, you've tried a lot of coffee and you
Yeah.
know what you want. And that's kind of
Mhm.
like that's kind of what my work is. We've been through a lot of things and we know
Mhm.
we're getting into the flow of our life and figuring ourselves out and yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's cool. When did you first know that you wanted to be an author? Because, like, writing, as
Oh,
I've been reading through your book, like, and as I, because I already know you, like, writing has been such an important part of your life. Was there a moment when you're like, "Oh, I want this to be my job"?
That's interesting because it's kind of two different things. Wanting to be a writer and wanting it to be your
Yes,
job are
that's very true,
different
yeah.
things. I don't have a moment in my life where I didn't want to be a writer. I've always
Mhm.
written. I've always wanted to write. My mom's favorite story to tell is that when she was setting up her classroom, my mom's a teacher. She brought me in, I was like 3 years old. She gave me a stack of papers to occupy
Mhm.
me, and within 5 minutes, I had filled them all up with these little scribbles. I couldn't write or read at the time,
Right,
but I
yeah,
just
yeah.
was, like, making these little scribbles. I'm like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm ready for my next work," and I think that was just always like, at the time, it was
Mhm.
like a tangible thing, like a something I needed to do with my hands, but
Yeah.
I've always needed to do that. Do I need
Mhm.
always needed to write words. When I wanted it to be a job, I don't think I ever thought that it could be because
Yeah.
growing up in evangelicalism, nobody's really encouraging you to be
Right.
a writer unless you're writing
Mhm.
like theology books. But the people that were writing those books when I was growing up were men. They were professors,
Mhm.
they were pastors. There wasn't really a space that I saw
Yeah.
for that for women. So it never even crossed my mind that that could be a career until I decided to start a blog, and once I started
Mhm.
writing my blog, this was like, I don't know, I was a new mom, 2012 maybe, I realized that a lot of other women were connecting with what I said, and I had all these opportunities to write for different blogs and different outlets and stuff like that, and that's probably when I was like, "Okay, I could actually make a career out of this," and it kinda grew
Yeah.
from there, yeah.
That's really, cool. As it's grown, like, has there like, what's been the most, like, I don't know, like, unexpected piece of it?
Hmm. Probably the people that have connected with my writing and the relationships that have
Mm.
come out of that. I would have never expected writing to create or to foster some of the most meaningful relationships in my life, or for my
Mhm.
writing to help other people connect with other meaningful relationships in their lives. Because writing is a pretty
Yeah.
solitary job, and you don't
Right.
really think that it
Yeah.
will ever it will ever bring relationships into your life.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's been really, really beautiful and unexpected.
Yeah, that's really cool. I had a similar thing, like, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be in ministry. Like, I wanted to work in a church, I wanted to be a youth pastor, but only
Mhm.
because I was told that because I was a woman, I wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
be any other kind of a pastor. And then even then, as I grow older, I remember my dad, well-meaning as he was, sitting me
Sure.
down and being like, "You won't be able to be a youth pastor
Yeah.
either because 'cause you're a woman," which is a separate conversation for a separate time.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that there was, like, other avenues to be able to talk about scripture and teach the Bible and be able to speak and speak into people's lives and, like, come alongside people
Yeah.
except in that role.
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking like, "Well, shoot, what am I gonna do then? I
Yeah.
have no other options."
I know. You gotta marry
But
a pastor.
yeah, when I was like, "Oh, Brian is gonna be," he was going to Bible school at the time, and he was, originally wanting to be a psychologist, which is very different than
Oh.
what he's doing
Mhm.
today, but then was, like, talking about working in the church as a psychologist, which is
Yeah.
very different than the work he
Yeah.
does now. So, Brian and I were just talking about, like, it's funny how, like, our preconceived ideas about what our life was gonna look
Yeah.
like when is so different,
Yeah. Yeah,
obviously, but
that's interesting because I grew up in a denomination where women could be pastors, but
Mm.
typically the ones who were put in positions of leadership were not married. So I
Oh,
married a
interesting.
pastor, or, we were youth pastors, and
Mhm.
because I was in a relationship with a man who had the same degree and the same career goals, I don't know, ministry goals as
Yeah.
I did, he was always the default hire. So I was when we were going through interview
Okay.
process, the questions for me were like, does she play piano? Can she sing? Or the pastor
Mm.
would be like, we don't want her to work. We want her to support your ministry fully, which was fine. I wanted to be a youth
Yeah.
pastor. We had the same degree, but only one of us was getting paid, and it was always defaulted to him. So
Mhm.
being a writer was something that, like, I can't do that because I'm a youth pastor. I decided to be a youth pastor and I support my husband, but I wasn't getting paid to be to be a youth
Right.
pastor. So that was
Yeah.
kind of like a natural. But yeah, it's interesting, like, you thought that
Mhm.
you couldn't, and I was like, I can, but I can't because my
Right,
husband.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's funny how they say you can't, like, they don't want you to work, but they still expect you
Yeah.
to work.
While not paying you enough to not
They're
work.
just, like, not considering it, like, the
Yeah.
quote, unquote, "real work," but if you don't do the quote, unquote,
Yeah.
"real work" of supporting your husband and making
Mhm.
sure the ministry is running smoothly, then you're failing.
What a Jezebel you are.
Actually, that leads really well into, like, what your book is about. So do you wanna
Yeah.
just tell us a little bit about growing up saved?
Sure. Well, growing up saved is about that, about growing up
Yeah.
saved. And I grew up in probably a pretty unique experience because I grew up in a
Mhm.
pastor's home in a family where everyone was a pastor. So all of my dad's siblings, all of my mom's
Mhm.
siblings, both sets of grandparents, just like one big dynasty of it was this denomination was Assemblies of God. So just a big Assemblies of God
Yeah, okay.
family. And I was a little different than everybody else in my family because now we know I'm neurodivergent. I also have some wirings in my brain that have fostered a great environment for anxiety and depression and
Yeah.
just a slew of things that made faith a little bit more complicated for
Mhm.
me. So I grew up in a loving home, but a home and in an environment that made me hate myself because I couldn't figure out why were all these things easier for everybody else than they
Yeah.
were for me. And the only
Mhm.
conclusion was like, I'm broken. I'm not committed to Christ enough. Like,
Mhm.
you find all these ways to criticize yourself for things that you can't control because everyone expects you to behave a certain way. And I couldn't behave that way as much as I tried. And I couldn't prevent myself from having questions and struggling with some of the things in scripture and some things doctrinally and theologically. So growing up saved is about growing up in that environment and having my identity shaped by really negative ideas like that I'm a sinner and that I'm broken and that I have to earn God's love and
Yeah.
finding all these ways to win the validation and approval of the people in my life while not actually doing the things that I like what I talk about in the book about pretending to speak in tongues, but I didn't mean to pretend to speak in tongues. I just really wanted to because in our denomination you had to speak in tongues to be approved for ministry. That was like
Mhm.
that's the AJ's thing, and I really wanted to be in ministry, so I just, like, shabba-dabba-dooba, and I'm
Right,
speaking in
right.
tongues, and I convinced myself that I was, but it really made me crash out a little bit, the older I you can only perform your faith for so long and
Yeah.
feel broken for so long before you're like, "Alright, what's the deal?" Like, either God is not who I thought he
Mhm.
was, or this is just not for me, and I need to tap out. So it's about that, it's about
Yeah.
finding my identity in spite of all of the factors that were telling me how bad of a person I was and finding out
Mhm,
how good
mhm.
God is, how kind he is, and how gracious he is to all of our brain wirings, not just the ones that are well suited for the evangelical church.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What you wrote okay, this is I'm reading the words you wrote. It says, "This book is about the undoing and rebuilding of faith and identity. It's about finding God, maybe for the first time, in spaces where we thought we were alone." And I feel like that, like, is such a good little summary of I don't know, maybe 100 or so pages into the book, and it's cool to see that how, as you write, you're pointing us back to Christ the entire time, because it's not about this is the worst system ever. It's about like God made us this way.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
can we trust that he is a good God and there's a purpose behind
Mhm.
this? Which I think was really cool. One of the things that really stood out to me too is you were talking about how you would like journal and pray and beg God to change the way that like your brain was
Mhm.
wired. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I remember doing that
Mm.
for I have journals and journals filled with asking God to make me stop crying because I would just cry and
Oh.
cry all the time. As a kid, I didn't understand. I had really severe depression and undiagnosed
Mm.
ADHD and a
Yeah.
lot of PTSD, and I didn't know that then. It's been since diagnosed with, and like by God's grace,
Yeah.
I've gone through a lot of healing, but at the time I didn't know. And I remember it wasn't until I met Brian that was like, your tears aren't this bad thing about you.
Mm.
Like it wasn't until met him that I even thought about like that not being a negative thing
Yeah.
about me, even the tiniest bit. And he was like, God cried too. And I had like had
Yeah.
never
A
even
lot.
yeah, yeah. Yes, a lot. Yeah. And it's I don't know, your words have already felt like such a balm to me, and I'm so grateful
Good.
for them.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait for more people to get it in their hands.
Me too.
A question that somebody asked me to ask you was talking about, like, neurodivergence and, like, the impact that it has, like, within, like, a a more, like, traditional church setting. Like, kind of a two-part question of, like, 1, how can, like, we accommodate the neurodivergent really well? And
Mhm.
my sort of second part of that question is, like, how can a neurodivergent person participate well? Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes I see this narrative about neurodivergence, especially from ADHD, just because that's the world that I live in, and I see that talked about the most because 'cause I'm in those spaces. But, is I see kind of a pendulum swing of, like, I'm ADHD, so anything I do is fine, and kind of
Mhm.
really leaning into, I don't know a better term, but like a victim mentality of not
Yeah.
taking very much accountability
Yeah.
for their actions, or of being like, "Get over it, pray
Yeah.
harder, Jesus will heal you if you
Yeah.
just believed."
Mhm.
And the truth is somewhere in the middle. I
Yeah,
believe.
always.
And so I'm
It
wondering, like, I don't know, I guess that's a lot to ask at once, but
Yeah,
you have thoughts.
yeah, definitely. Well, with how churches can do better, I think it's hard because most Western churches are set up to accommodate the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time. They're set up for efficiency, for
Mhm.
programs, for, a lot of churches have 3 or 4 services. And so generally the system that we have set up is not going to be something that is accommodating naturally for
Right.
neurodivergent people. And of course, it's a spectrum. So everyone's neurodivergence shows up in different ways. I think a big thing that churches can be doing is to be knowledgeable of neurodivergence and how that shows up in people
Yeah.
in different ways. Even for adults, we'll start with specifically for adults, a lot of the things that you and I probably struggle with because of our ADHD are attributed to someone not being reliable or being
Uh-huh.
irresponsible or untrustworthy or you know, anything negative you can think. And I think that if people understood more about ADHD, they would know like, nope, that's not what's going on. It's just we have 1,000 things going on in our brain every second,
Mhm.
and they're different thousands of things every second. There's just a lot
Yeah.
going on up in our our brains and our nervous
Mhm.
systems. And I think understanding what ADHD and how it presents in adults is a good thing. Also, autism, I think understanding how that presents in so many different ways for adults. I mean, I'm not officially diagnosed, but we can all like safely assume that I'm somewhere along the spectrum.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I struggle with related to that is a lot of noises. So the charismatic church was very difficult for me because it's a
Mm.
very sensory overload type of experience. The
Mhm.
music is over, like people would just randomly start yelling and running around. And it was just like when you go into an environment where you don't know what to expect and you're wired to need to know what to expect in order to stay regulated, those kind of
Yeah.
environments can make you feel like something's wrong with you and can make other people feel like she's not spiritual because she doesn't like the way the Holy Spirit is moving. It's not that.
Right.
It's just maybe we aren't a good fit. And for how it shows up with children, obviously now as a mom of multiple, I mean, at this point, I'm like, who isn't on the
Well, if
spectrum in
it's
this house?
genetic, it makes so much sense. I think
Oh
that
my
was one of
gosh.
the thing I, like, felt really, like, I don't know, I'm another, like, white girl who has severe
I know.
anxiety and depression and ADHD, cool, like, but it does make sense just from a
Yeah.
scientific perspective. If it's genetic, then
Yep.
of course there's gonna
Your
be more
house
of
is
us.
gonna be full of it. And so
Yeah.
my perspective as a mom now is I'm a little bit more mama bear about my kids because
Mhm.
of how hurt I was growing up in the church and feeling so
Mhm.
othered because of my neurodivergence in the church, which is mostly related to my ADHD. And now I've got a daughter with ADHD, and 2 daughters with autism, and my boys were like, it's just like a matter of time
Yeah.
before we figure out what
What
what's
it
going
is.
on what's going on there. And so I'm like, I actually don't wanna bring my kids to an environment where I have to train you how to be kind to them. I wanna find an environment where they're already welcome as they are
Yeah.
because I don't need anybody trying to change them. And that's something that a lot of churches don't do well because they don't know how to, and
Mhm.
maybe they don't have experience with kids who have special needs or who are on the spectrum in any kind of way. So for me, the churches that have been the most welcoming and the ones that I would be like, yeah, we'll come to that one again, is
Mhm.
just where everyone is just happy my kids are there regardless of how they're showing up. I don't care if
Yeah.
they have a system set up. I don't care if they have a quiet room or sensory friendly toys. And like, I
Yeah.
don't care about any of that. I will take care of my kids' needs if I can. If we need to exit, I'll take my kids out. If we need to find a room, I'll find another room. Like, that's fine. I don't really care if there's a special needs ministry in the
Mhm.
church. But if the people are kind and welcoming and I don't feel like I'm bothering everyone by
Right,
existing in
yes.
that space, you'll see me again. And that's hard.
Mm.
That's hard to find in evangelical churches. I found it the most in more high churches like Methodist churches, Presbyterian churches. They're a little bit more like we're happy kids are here because they're not so
Yeah.
focused on the function of the service like a lot of
Right. Okay,
modern
yeah.
churches are. But the other side of that question, showing up as a neurodivergent person, I think the biggest part of what makes existing in community hard for us in general, outside of church, but like inside of church as well, is the
Mhm.
shame we feel about our needs. And I think when
Yeah.
you unravel that and let go of that shame and deconstruct the shame, if you will, and just
Mhm.
accept yourself, it's a lot easier to show up as you are to spaces and to not feel like something's wrong with you if you need to exit or if you're feeling overwhelmed or if you
Yeah.
don't want to go that day. And to accept those things is also part of what you were saying of like not being like, oh, well, I have ADHD, so I can't do that. I think we all go through that
Mhm.
process after we get diagnosed where we do feel like, well, I'm just going to exit everything and do whatever I need to do because I have
Right, yeah.
needs. And I think that's okay because you're paying attention to your needs for the first time. And I think that's
Mhm.
probably a necessary process to go through. But once we go through that process, now we have to figure out how I'm going to show up well to my life without shame
Mhm.
and without feeling like everybody owes me, so like I'm entitled to the world
Mhm.
treating me a certain way because of my neurodivergence. Because chances are 75 other people in the room also have neurodivergence. So
Yeah.
you just let go of your shame and unravel that. I found for me that has affected my life the most. Like, yeah, sometimes I have to put my loop earbuds in because
Mhm.
y'all are stressing me out and I need some noise reduction. And that's not something to be embarrassed of. That's just
Right.
what I need. That means I can show up and I'm here, but I've got my my earbuds in and your voice
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just like 2 decibels quieter, you know?
Right. I should really get those because noise is such a big thing for me. Like, you
Mhm.
know the moment when you, like, turn off the overhead fan on the stove? It's, like,
Uh-huh.
immediate, like,
Yeah.
if
Like,
it's like
I
the
didn't realize
equivalent of
how
taking your bra off at
overstimulated
the
I
end of
was.
the day when you're like, "Ah,
Yep.
so happy that's done."
Yep, I've got 2 pairs of noise canceling headphones at my
That's so
desk, and
smart.
then I have my AirPods, and then I have my loops because what is it called? Misophonia, I think is the word, when
Yeah.
noises, like, overwhelm you. I mean, Zach won't even eat toast near me because 'cause I'm like, if I don't have my loops in, I'm like, "I'm gonna throw up."
I'm married to a drummer. He's, like, always, like, and humming and beat bopping about, and I'm always like,
Yeah,
"Brian," and he's like, I'm sorry."
that's great.
Yeah. You wrote in your book that you said sometimes we hide to survive, and that may be the wise thing to do for a season, but we can't stay hiding,
Yeah,
and we can only live fractured for so long. And that I feel like really speaks exactly what you were saying of like
yeah,
there's a season where you might just need to like withdraw and kind of
yeah,
pull back from everything. Um, but when I was reading that, it made me think about your abundant list. Would you share
mhm.
that with us? I would love to hear.
Sure. So I created this list a couple years ago that I've just kind of like it just kept it to myself for a little while because I realized that the way that I grew up and even probably more so into adulthood, the only things that I ever wanted had to be baptized in something spiritual. And I don't
Mm.
think anybody ever told me that it had to be that way. I think it's just
Yeah.
I craved validation and I craved praise.
Mm.
And I only got those things growing up for spiritual. Well, I won't say only, but most of the things I got the most praise for were for spiritual things. So I just like with writing, like I can't be a writer unless I'm
Mm.
writing spiritual things. I can't, you
Mm.
limit yourself because you're so kingdom minded that you forget that you're living in a human body and God always intended us to be in a human body and he always intended us
Yeah.
to live on this earth. And if he wanted to live like we were not in it, he wouldn't have put us here, you know? So I created this
Mhm.
abundant list because I was like, what would an abundant life look like for me? Because if Jesus said he came to give us life and to give it abundantly, he didn't
Mhm.
say, "I came to give you heavenly life abundantly," which obviously he's going to, but he said,
Right, right.
"For life here, I came so that this life that you're leading here, you can live abundantly." What does that look like for me? It's gonna look like different things for every person, but for me, I made a
Mhm.
list, and these are all the things that I would do if I wasn't trying to be, like, hyper spiritual and, like, abstract
The
meaning out of
holiest of
everything.
holy.
Like, "Oh, I'm just such a serious Christian spiritual woman." I'm like, "I wanna learn how to dance. I wanna go
Yeah.
horseback ride. I wanna travel. I wanna do long hikes. I wanna learn a different art style." Just all these
Yeah.
things that are, like, whether it's my idea of, like, what makes you a good Christian woman holding me back,
Mhm.
or just the fact that I've had so many years of trauma and then healing from trauma, which takes years out of your life to feel like your
Yeah.
brain is open to doing new things and trying new things again.
Mhm.
So, yeah, my abundant list is all a list of all the things that I wanna do, preferably before I turn 40 in a year. Probably not gonna get to all of them, but just the things that I wanna do that I just decided I couldn't do for some stupid reason, and now I'm like, "But what if
Yeah.
I did? What if I did do those things?"
Yeah, that's so cool. It's funny the stuff that we tell ourselves we can't do. I feel like I got married so young. I was married at 20, and then I had my first kid at 21,
Yeah.
and so I went, like, from being
Baby.
very much What?
You were a baby.
I really was, yeah, like, and I still feel like a baby. Well, and that's kinda my point, is that, like, I went from being very micromanaged in my
Yeah.
super Jesus freak '90s evangelical house, but my parents were divorced, so I was in one house where it was very much like, this is a small potatoes example, but, like, I could wear eyeshadow, but I couldn't wear mascara until I was 18. Or, like, it was like everything was, like, hyper, there were so many random rules about randomness that
Was
I don't think.
mascara, like, too sexy?
Yeah, that I looked like a slut is what I was told. But you know what's
Oh.
hilarious to me is that my grandma bought us, what is the magazine? It was like Cosmo, no, 17.
Uh,
You know, like the magazine
yeah.
17? And they had a tip in there on, like, to, like, put your mascara on both sides of your eyelashes to make them look longer, and I have, like, teeny tiny little, they're very dark, but teeny,
Mhm.
teeny tiny little eyelashes. So I didn't have any other makeup on, but I just had this mascara on, and that did not go well. There were words that I can't
Ruh-roh.
unhear. Um,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but on the other side of the spectrum, at my other parents' house, they were are not believers, and the rule, like, if you asked to get excused from the table, they were like, "I don't care," which they're not getting me in trouble, but from my, like, going from a very legalistic
Yeah,
place to this,
yeah,
I would be like, "I'm so sorry, I just wanted to
yeah,
be nice." Like, so I remember just feeling so back and forth, and then got married
yeah,
really young, had kids really young, and I feel like I never got to be an adult. Like, I went from,
yeah.
like, I was always an
Yep,
adult, but I never had agency over my adulthood.
yep,
Do you know what I'm saying?
totally.
And it hasn't been until the last few years, really until an ADHD diagnosis,
Mhm.
where I was like, "Oh, I'm in charge
Yeah.
of my life. I get to make
Yeah.
choices and make decisions." Because I would ask Brian all the time and be like, "Oh, can I go do such and such thing?" He'd be like, "I don't care. You do
Yeah.
whatever you want, sweet girl." And I didn't
Yeah.
realize until recently that I was like, I never felt like a real adult, but
Yeah, that's
I'm.
such a good phrase, like, agency over your adulthood, because
Yeah.
Zach and I talk about that all the time of how we met when we were 19, we're married at 21,
Mhm.
and it took us a little while to get pregnant because I have PCOS, but I didn't know that that was why.
Yeah, yeah.
But at 24, I felt like I was running out of time, like, I have to have kids now because I'm getting
Mhm.
so old. So I
Yeah.
started having kids, and I never stopped, and I mean, I stopped at 34.
Right, right,
And
but
then we were in ministry, so there was so much that I couldn't do because of the people in the church. Like, what would the people in the church think? And I had
yeah.
to, like, hide the books that I was reading, and they were, like, magic books, like, nothing there it was like Fourth Wing or something. They're just, like, kids' books that have magic in them, but I would have teenagers over, and I would have to hide those books because what if the teenagers'
Yeah.
parents didn't like magic? And so much of my life was lived by how it would be perceived by other people or
Mhm.
by what was approved of in our church communities. And it took me, even after we left ministry, it took me many years to be like, "Oh, I can make my own choices.
Mhm.
I'm a grown up. I have the Holy Spirit. I have discernment. I have wisdom. I can make my own choices and not have to worry that someone's going to
Mhm.
get mad at me or I'm going to fail or God's going to get mad at me. I can just live my life."
Yeah, and something I'm constantly reminding of myself of, to, like, to that point, is that, like, when I inevitably at some point make a choice that maybe isn't good, like, God is so loves me.
Yeah.
He's not gonna be like,
Yeah.
"You horrible human being." He's gonna be like, "Oh,
Isn't that the whole
man,
point? Like,
that was a bad choice.
that's
Let's
the
fix
whole
it."
point.
Like, "Let's carry
Yeah,
on." You know? Like, he's not here to
yeah,
trick us up and catch us when we fail. He's here
yeah.
to love us through it the whole
Just
time.
waiting he's just waiting for us to screw up
Yeah,
so he
but
can
I had
punish
that,
us.
though. I think I
Yeah,
was thinking like he
me
was like, "Oh,
too.
he's gonna
Yep,
catch me,"
yep.
which is crazy.
I know. Kind of the antithesis of what the whole story of God and his people is about, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, we're very much loved more than I think that we realize, which makes me
Totally.
wonder, like, another thing that you wrote that I really loved is that you said, "When we choose to follow Jesus, whether as a child or as an adult, our beliefs look a lot like, um, the environment, like, our
Mhm,
faith is nurtured in." And so I'm wondering, like, as adults now raising kids in faith environments, like, what
mhm.
are some things that maybe you do from your experience to try and help nurture that faith in a way that
Mm,
is more aligned with the gospel and is more in line with what we
yeah.
know to be true about who God is, and yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the things that is really hard because of the work that I'm in and the ministry that I do is with people who have deconstructed their faith or are deconstructing or
Mhm.
there's something there's 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 a lot of pain and there's a lot of
Yeah.
confusion and disorientation, I think, is probably the best word to describe people who are going through that process. I
Mhm.
went through that process as well and rebuilt my faith. A lot of people don't. And so when Zach and I approach faith with our kids, we can't help but have that in our minds, what we've learned from the people
Right.
that we work with and like the things that they've told us have affected them so negatively. So you mentioned agency. That's one of the things that we're doing probably differently than either one of our parents. Zach didn't grow up Christian, but you still you still have that kind of like framework, life framework,
Yeah.
worldview handed down to you. Is we're giving our kids a lot of agency. And that can be really uncomfortable because I
Mhm.
grew up where like faith was a non-negotiable and that's not like your parents can't force you to get on your knees and ask Jesus into your heart, but there are expectations and you want to
Right.
please your parents and you want to please your community and be accepted. And so
Mhm.
you learn to play the part.
Mhm.
And we don't want that for our kids to feel like that our love for them, our acceptance of them is hinged on whether or not they believe the same things that we believe or believe them to the veracity that we believe them.
Right,
So we
yeah.
give them a lot of agency in their faith exploration and in conversations. Like one of my kids is
Mhm.
very literal and he's has a hard time with abstract concepts and faith can be very difficult when you struggle with abstract
Yeah.
concepts. And so we
Mhm.
kind of have to approach developing him as a human being from a different perspective because we can't just say this is what the Bible says and this is what God says and this is what you're supposed to do because he
Right.
struggles with those concepts. And so we want him to be a good person and we want him to make good choices and obviously we want him to know that he's loved and that God loves him and to have
Mhm.
faith because I think faith is such an important piece in a person's life. But because of the way he's wired, we have to kind of approach it from a different way and make sure that he always has the agency to explore those things on his own without feeling like they're shoved down his throat because then
Yeah.
that's gonna, go a different way. So we lean really heavily on stories, the stories of scripture. The Book of Belonging
Mhm.
is a really great book that I recommend all the
Mhm.
time because it's a very it's a beautiful storytelling book about scripture. So we lean heavily on the stories. We give them a lot of agency and we don't try to set an expectation that there are right answers that they have to give in order to win our approval. We want them to be on their own journey because that seems to
Mhm.
be the thing that makes it easier to have faith as you grow up if you feel like you've always had a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I really love that. I like the Book of Belonging too. I think it is really
It's
well
great.
written.
Yeah.
Something that somebody said to me once, so this isn't my brilliance, this was passed down to me, that I think really helps, especially if you have, like, little kids, but
Mhm.
for all ages, is we do a lot of, like, storybook Bibles, and one of
Mhm.
the things that's important to me is that the kids know, like, this is a storybook Bible, and we teaching the difference between, like, the
Yeah.
Word of God and this is, like, an interpretation of the Word of God, and so I like to read, like, a variety of different storybook
Oh,
Bibles
yeah.
because if this is all an interpretation, we wanna hear from a lots of
Sure.
interpretations of what that scripture is. So but one thing that was encouraged to do from an early age that I've seen the, like, fruit of as they've gotten older is when they ask the questions that feel so stupid in the moment, and you're like, "It's bedtime. We just need to get this book read and
Yeah.
go to bed." But, like, when they ask, like, "Why is this person's shirt this color in the illustration?" Or, like, all of the
Mhm.
little questions that they ask that don't seem to matter
Mhm.
because of the point of the story to, like, give them time to think it through and talk about it
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a prescriptive answer and sometimes there's not, but for me, that's really helped because a lot of times the illustrations are actually drawn with the theology and the symbolism of the story in mind. Not always,
Yeah.
but a lot of times they are. The Biggest Storybook Bible is another one that I really love
Mm.
for a similar reason because the illustrations, and I have two very like creative children who are very like art centered.
Mhm.
And so for them, they really love it because they love to find all the symbolism and all of the meaning in the pictures. And so it's fun for them. And that's been like a little thing that's helped so much because now that they're getting bigger and they're in classrooms where their their peers are coming from all different wild like backgrounds. Like I put our kids on, we do public school.
Mhm.
And so like sexual orientation is different or like even in little grades it's been really cool because then I can see my kids just ask questions
Yeah.
and not feel the need for the specific answer all the time. It's just been cool to see that little piece of advice has served me so well and I feel
Yeah.
very grateful somebody shared it
Yeah,
with
it's
me.
like when kids feel like they could talk to you about anything, they'll talk to you about anything, and
Yes.
it's not always at the great time or in a great
Mhm.
in a great place. Sometimes my kids will ask
Mhm.
the wildest questions when we're out in public and surrounded by people, and I'm like, one of these days, I'm gonna be on one of these TikToks that goes viral because my kids
Yeah.
ask me questions super, super loudly, and somebody's gonna be like, "What's this mom gonna? She gonna say the wrong thing to her
I
kid?"
can't.
I can't. I can't.
Yeah.
But when your kids feel safe with you, then they will ask you anything and
Mhm.
everything, and you kinda just
Yeah.
have to roll with it.
Yep, yeah, yeah, that and, like, the other thing that somebody told me once was to just answer the question right in front of you, for
Yeah.
littler ones especially, like, you
Yeah.
don't need to give, like, a full it's
No.
my tendency to just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, which, like,
Mhm.
that's not what they
Yeah.
need. They just need
No.
me to answer the question right in front of them, and I think that's been really helpful too. I
Yeah.
think that's
And
been really
and
helpful.
and to not panic, because sometimes I ask questions
Yeah,
that you can feel like I have to give them the right answer right now or this is gonna screw them up forever, but
mhm,
rarely does anything like that happen. I think you just don't panic and overload them with information because you're scared that they're gonna end up with the wrong answer. It's just a
right.
question. Questions aren't that big of a deal. They'll have a
Mhm.
million more questions and you'll have a million more opportunities to guide them or correct yourself if you say a stupid thing,
Yeah.
which we
That's
all
something I
do.
do a lot is, like, circle back to it later. I'll be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I don't think I answered that very well. Can we talk about
Yeah.
it again?" And
Yeah.
we'll, like, reopen it later when I'm
Yeah.
feeling more, like, settled.
Yeah.
'Cause I think a lot of times the my response is gonna matter more than my
Totally.
words. Like, the way I
Totally.
hold my
Yeah.
face or my tone of voice oftentimes
Yeah.
matters more than the words I choose, and if my tone of voice or my face don't align with what I know to be true about scripture, I have to come back and be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, I didn't handle that.
Yeah.
Good. Let's try again."
Sorry.
Yeah, my bad. Okay, I'm loving the way also, can I just say from like a business perspective, I'm loving the way you're doing this launch. Oh, thank it's been so fun to watch it, like,
Fun.
unfold, and I can't wait to see what else you create because it's neat. Something that I've, like, been talking with a lot of, like, my clients about and I've talked about in the podcast a lot
Mhm.
is, like, how can we treat because for authors and for writers and for really any creatives, like, you're now also marketing
Yeah.
team and, like, you're wearing
It's
all the hats,
awful.
and a lot of people really hate it, which
Yeah.
is fair, like, that's not why you started the work you're doing,
Mhm.
like, I get it, but
Yeah.
the question I've been asking people is, like, how can we think about it more like an art installment? How can you think about
Yeah.
it the
That's
launch
right.
more like an extension
Yep.
of your work
Yep.
to tell a greater story or to add to the story? And watching the way that you've approached this is exactly that. So I'm
Oh,
wondering, like,
thanks.
where are you getting your ideas? Like, tell me about that process.
Mhm. Well, I think it's partially because marketing my last book burned me out so much because it was such
Mm.
a bummer, like, I loved my book, but
It was also a very heavy,
it
heavy
was
topic.
heavy, yeah, and
Yeah.
lots of trauma. It's a book about suffering. You can't really
Mhm.
find a fun way to market a book about suffering, and
Yeah.
a lot of people that wanted to interview me want, like, the juicy like, they want a podcast that's gonna be listened to, so they wanted to talk
Yeah.
about the traumas, and I'm like, "Can we talk about, like, the good things that happened and what I learned? Like, do we have to, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
go through all these details?" So it really burned me out. So I was kind of disappointed once the book came out because all of my marketing energy was gone. And you're not
Mhm.
supposed to just stop talking about your book when it comes out. But by the time my book came out, I was just like,
So
I
depleted.
cannot talk about my
Yeah.
traumas for another second. So with this book, as soon as I wrote the book and then was kind of going back and forth on the title, and neither I or my publisher liked the title. The first title was Finally Free. And it
Okay.
was, the book was gonna end with this idea of like, here's how we get finally free. But
Mhm.
then we were like, I don't really know if that's the one. And then I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Growing Up Saved, because that's what this book is about. And my publisher was
Mhm.
like, this is amazing. So as soon as I thought of the title, I changed all my chapter titles to be a nod to the era that I grew
I
up in.
love it
So
so
if you grew
much.
up in the
Yeah.
90s, you'll see the chapter titles and you'll be like, "Oh, I see what she's doing here." So even though the chapters aren't about the specific thing that the chapter titles like, it's not about I Kiss Dating Goodbye or like the
Right.
Left Behind series, but I incorporate those
Mhm.
titles into my book. But I changed all the chapter titles and I was like, the way that I'm gonna make this book promotion not feel soul sucking for me as a
Yeah.
creative is to have fun with it. And obviously there are
Mhm.
some heavy topics in the book, but I feel like the book is light enough that I can have fun with it and
Right.
really play into like yes, the trauma of growing up in the 90s Christianity, which Nate Bargatze says is the most Christian.
What's the most Christian?
If
I
your
know, I
parents
loved
were
that.
Christians in the 90s, they were the most Christian. So leaning into, like, how awful that was in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
but also we're older now and we can, like, look back and say, "Yeah, that
Yeah.
was sad, but, like, wasn't that funny as well?" And that's the way
Mhm.
that we have fun with this, and also everything is so nostalgic right now, and I kinda clocked that 2
Yeah.
years ago. I told my husband, "By the time my next book comes out, I really feel like people are gonna be leaning hard into the '90s of it all," not just with
Mhm.
Christianity, but I was seeing the trends on, like, TikTok and Twitter
Mhm.
and, like, in movies and stuff where people are really, like, going back into that nostalgia, and I'm like, "I bet this is gonna hit Christians as well, and we're
Perfect
gonna
timing,
start,
yeah.
like, leaning more and more into the nostalgia of the '90s." And then wouldn't
Mhm.
you know it, my book's coming out in March. Rachel Lampa and Stacey Orico just released a version of "Blessed" together, which was one of my
Did they
favorite
actually? That's
songs.
awesome.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Okay, I was right about this," and I'm starting to see some other these people kind of, like,
Mhm.
coming up, like Joshua Harris, who wrote I Kissed Dating Goodbye, is someone that I've met and talked to. I told him about the chapter in my book where I kind of nod to him. Like, there's
Yeah.
all these people from our childhood that are starting to be more prominent figures again,
Mhm.
and so I feel proud of myself for kinda clocking that a
Yeah.
couple years ago, but that was kind of the development of the marketing behind this was, I need this to feel fun, I need it to feel light, I need it to not feel like I'm trying to take down the church because that's not what this is. I want this to be good-natured fun of, like, let's make fun of the
Yeah.
things that traumatized us, because
Yeah.
sometimes you have to make fun of the things that were bad to heal and then to be able to look back
Yeah.
and say, "Okay, I
Mhm.
can look back without feeling triggered all the time." So the marketing is already so much fun, and I can't
Good.
wait to just, like, lean into it more and more as we go.
Yeah. All of the, like, shirts that just blatantly ignore, like,
Yeah.
trademarking
Yeah.
laws.
Yeah.
Why do Christians not recognize that that's a
No, we
thing?
don't
We
need to
don't.
follow copyright laws. There's no commandment about
Yeah.
that.
It's sure. It's not stealing.
It's
It's
not
fine.
stealing, it's borrowing.
Yeah. That's so fun. I know. I saw the blow up chair, the, like, plastic one, and I could hear it crinkling, like, in my mind's eye.
I've had a lot of fun gathering all the supplies. I've got some butterfly clips.
Yes.
I don't know if you did this, but I used to wrap my hair with strings. You remember hair wraps? I used to
Yes,
do
did
that.
you have one of the ones that you could, like, turn on and you could put your hair into it?
No, I would manually wrap my hair in
That's
string. I'm not
ex
doing that
that's
now, but I bought, like, a little clip that looks
that's
like
awesome.
it. I bought,
I'm sad you're not
paper
doing that now.
down.
You should just wrap your own hair. Like, why
I
wouldn't
know,
you do
I should just commit to the bit.
commit, come on.
My kids would love that. They would think that's so cool.
That's funny. I had one of it was like a turquoise, and it had, like, 3 little strings, and you would feed your hair through the little, like, hole, and then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
click a button, and then it would wrap it for you, and you pull it down.
Oh.
But the amount of times I would come to my mom with it stuck to my head and be like,
Oh.
"Mom, I need your help," because it would get all tangled up.
Nope, I would do it myself, or there was always someone doing it at, like, our church's festivals. There was always, like, a
Yeah.
hair wrapper, so I would go and
That's
pay
awesome.
$5 to get my hair wrapped. Yeah. Very
That's so
cool.
fun. Very, very cool, very hip. That's so fun. Okay, how can people buy the book? Amazon? Where's the best place to get
Anywhere.
it?
Yeah.
Anywhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would encourage you to go to your local bookstore, support the
Mhm.
local bookstore first, but then, yeah, Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, anywhere. Yeah.
That's exciting. I'll put links to it in the show notes too. And then I'm wondering too, like, how can we best, like, support you during the launch? Like, I know the
Ooh.
importance of, like, pre-ordering.
Yeah.
You wanna, like, share a little bit about, like, why that matters?
Pre-orders matter because it tells the retailers that people are interested in the book. So without the pre-orders, they don't really order copies of the book, which creates
Mhm.
a cycle of, like, the book not being available and then people aren't buying the book because it's not available. So pre-orders
Mhm.
kind of give a nod to everybody who sells a book, like, we should order some copies of this book. And then there's no production delays because if they
Mhm.
because publishers will order a certain amount of books because that's what they expect to sell. And if the book takes off after publication and they don't
Mhm.
have enough books printed, then it's going to delay shipping and stuff like that. So it's just like a really boring process of, like, just pre-order because it tells everybody what they need to know about how the book is going to
Is
do.
gonna, like, perform.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Cool. And then how can people, like, help support you during the launch?
Well, we're all fighting the algorithm, and
Yeah.
everyone that's out there selling something or promoting something is trying to get eyes on them, and that is really hard to do in
Mhm.
the clogged algorithms that we have. So just liking and engaging with posts, commenting, sending them, commenting on
Mhm.
stories with me, with anybody that's out there trying out there
Yeah,
hustling
yeah.
the best way to support us is to engage with what we're doing.
Yep. And I'm always reminding to my clients, like, if you want people to be engaging on your stuff, you got to engage on other people's
Totally.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if you want a village, you got to be a villager, my friend.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Just kidding.
We did it. Just kidding. Thanks for hanging out with me. I like
Yeah.
you. I
Thanks
like
for
the
having
work you're
me.
doing.
That's great.
Yeah. I hope you had so much fun listening to that conversation. I know it really energized me and refueled me, and it was such a joy to be able to share that with all of you. Make sure you pre-order that book. Pre-orders, she spoke about it earlier, but pre-orders really, really, really matter for authors. And I want to do everything we can within our power as a community to support Kristen in this launch. So go pre-order that book ASAP. I'm going to put some links for places you can prioritize it in the show notes for you. And if you're interested in attending company retreat, don't wait on submitting your application. You're running out of time, my sweet friend. That's not entirely true, but you are running out of time to get it, like, take advantage of the early bird application. So when you submit your application to attend company retreat this March, it doesn't mean you're paying immediately. And I want you to keep that in mind. I offer payment plans. If the finances is something that's holding you back, submit your application and let's have a conversation about it, because this retreat is too important to ignore. And I believe that wholeheartedly. So have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we'll chat next week. Okay, bye.